Hey everyone, welcome back to bodyhavensoaps. My name is Darlene and I am the owner and creator of bodyhavensoaps, and on this channel the goal is to help fellow creators create. I share recipes, formulas, information about how to formulate and how to create your own products safely and with the correct ingredients. Alright, so if that's something that interests you, hit that subscribe button and follow along. And if you like my videos, give me a thumbs up to help support my channel and help me move forward and keep providing you with more information. Alright, I just want to throw out a quick disclaimer before we go any further. I am not trained, I'm not a cosmetologist, I'm not any of those things. I am completely self-taught. I've been doing this for about 5 years, and the whole reason I started this channel was because simply when I started, the amount of information and how to find it out, it was a lot of work. There's a lot of research, and I just wanted to give people a source that they could take some ideas from. They could use those ideas, test and trial, and how we test and trial recipes and things like that. So hopefully to make things make sense to some people. A little easier than, 3 months of research just for one thing. So hopefully that's working for you guys, okay? So today's recipe, you guys, we are going to use that soap paste that we made in the last video, and we are going to make our liquid soap. I'm going to make a turmeric foaming face soap out of this. So I'm making a smaller batch, so I'm doing this in my double boiler just because I'm making a small batch right now. If I was making a larger batch, which I will be later on, I would use my crock pot for that. It works phenomenal for it, but for the small batch I'm doing, it's not going to work well in my crock pot. So we are doing this in the double boiler method. In here I have 500 grams of distilled water, and I have 100 grams of soap paste weighed out here. The very first thing we want to do is get this water hot, break this up into the water, and let it begin to dissolve. Now there's two ways that you can do this, you guys. You don't have to just do it this way. You could just, the night before, weigh out your water, throw your soap paste in, cover it with saran wrap, let that sit. Okay, and it will just dissolve into that water. To speed it up, we heat the water on a double boiler or in a crock pot, and we just put the soap paste in there and cook it out. Now, if your soap paste is cooked enough, now this is one thing that I had a couple questions about. If it's not cooked long enough, when you try to dilute it, it will go milky. Okay, that is no good. You should be a clear color. Okay, not milky. If it's a little bit cloudy, but not milky, okay, you haven't cooked it long enough. That's the problem. So before you do this, you may want to take a small amount and test the dilution and make sure that your soap paste is cooked enough if this isn't something that you're familiar with. But you would have a milky substance if it wasn't cooked enough. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take this 100 grams of this hemp seed oil soap paste, and I'm going to break it up into this pot of hot distilled water, and I'm going to cook it down. That's going to take about 15 to 20 minutes for this to all dissolve into there and break down completely. All right, so let's get at it. All right, so it's pretty simple. We're just going to break this up, and I like to break it into small pieces in here so it just dissolves a little bit faster. You could just put it in there and let it cook down, and it will just cook down. It will just take a little longer. But as simple as that. Okay guys, so 500 grams of water. I'm doing a 5-to-1 ratio, so 100 grams of soap paste. I'm going to turn this on and I'm going to let it cook down for about 20 minutes, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, so this is completely melted down and exactly what you want it to look like. It is not milky at all because the soap paste was cooked down enough. It'll actually look milky if it's not cooked enough. You could test this in a smaller amount. You don't have to do it this big, guys, just to make sure that it's cooked enough if you're not familiar with making the soap paste. Okay, as long as it's cooked down enough. Now it's not completely translucent, but pretty close because I use the hemp seed oil in it. So you're gonna see a little bit of color, but it's still translucent, okay? It's not milky at all. So I know that my soap paste is good. At this point, you guys, now when we're dealing with soap, soap paste, bar soap, it's going to be a fairly high pH, and a lot of people always want to try and bring that pH down because our skin's more acidic. Okay, so our skin has its natural pH, but it is designed to rebalance the pH. And for a soap product to work, if you're going to use a soap base, so a bar or soap paste, you're going to have that higher pH. Okay, this is probably going to come in at about a 10, which is kind of the top of the scale of where we would like soap to be. At a 10, it's going to be very lathery, but there's not going to be a lot of conditioning properties. At a 9, and 10 is usable, guys, and at a 9 pH, it's going to be a little less lathery, but it's going to have some conditioning properties. At an 8, once again, it's going to have a little bit of lather, not great lather, and then it's going to be highly conditioning. But I would not drop my soap below an 8, and I don't even like getting close to an 8 because then I don't have the lather property I'm looking for. And I did do this to a 5-to-1 ratio. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and you guys would have to cool this to room temperature if you're trying to use a stick because you won't get an accurate reading. This thermometer does adjust to the temperature of the liquid that you're putting it in. So we're going to quickly test to see what our pH is actually sitting at. Which isn't horrible. It's a 9.7374. Okay, and I just have this meter sitting in some distilled water here to rinse it off between testing. Okay, so I am going to drop this slightly because I would like it to be close to a 9, especially because I'm making this for a foaming face soap. I want it to be cleaning. If I get it too low, it won't have a good cleaning property, and if I have it too high, it's going to be drying on the skin. So 10 is acceptable, and you wouldn't have to adjust the pH in this. You could use it just as it is. I am going to adjust the pH slightly. So I am going to use my citric acid and distilled water, and I've mixed this at a 20% citric acid and 80% distilled water. And when you put this in here, you're gonna see some curdling, guys. Don't panic if you do this, okay? You'll see what I mean. It is gonna curdle slightly, look like it's curdling, and it just takes a while for that citric acid to blend in, but that's why it's good to do this right off the hop, because now we've got this nice and hot. So as I put this in there, and I'm going to use a few drops to drop it down, you're going to see that it gets kind of that milky curdly look. Okay, and like that. Don't panic, just stir that in until it is well dissolved. Sometimes you'll actually get the white chunks. You can see there's a few white chunks in here. That's okay. Just keep stirring and cook it out, and it will dissolve into your mixture. You start to get too much foam in there so you can't see. Just give it a couple sprays of the alcohol. We'll quickly test this to see where we are. And that's at a 932 now. I'm going to put a little bit more in here. And that's going to be all I'm adding, you guys. That's going to be close enough to a 9. If I get too much in there, what's going to happen is the soap is going to separate on me, and I'm just going to end up with a curdled mess. So you really can't get it much lower than, I find, around an 8.5, and that's kind of where it just turns into this separated mess. But just cook this and stir it in. It may take a little while depending on your mixture. And that's at a 9.2, so close enough. We are going to call that close enough to where I need it. So I'm just going to stir this a bit more, make sure I have no white lumps left in there. And I've got this to a 9, or close enough to a 9 that I'm happy with it. Any lower than that, you're really not going to get much sudsing. And this is a face wash. Okay, and I don't want it to leave that film on the skin if I get it much lower, because it's not going to have that ability to wash off the soap product as well without the sudsing. Okay, so now that we have that done, we're actually going to take this off of here, and we're done with our pH meter. And as I said, guys, if you don't adjust the pH, this is still usable. But don't go crazy with citric acid in this. You will end up with a curdled mess. So we've got this at a 9 and it's nice and clear. We can add a few things in here, and then we're going to have to let this cool so that we can add our preservative. So the first thing that we're going to add in here, because I know we put vegetable glycerin in our soap paste when we made it to add that moisturizing ability in the soap itself, but I'm going to add a little bit more glycerin because I want to add that humectant properties to this so that it's more hydrating for the face. So in here I have 9 grams of vegetable glycerin that I'm going to stir in here. This will work as a solvent to help keep this clear, and it will also work to bring moisture to the skin. So give that a good stir in. Okay, the other thing I'm going to add into here is going to be some prickly pear oil, actually. It brings great nutrients to the skin, and it really helps with pore size and things like that. So I want to put this in there. And I have 9 grams of the prickly pear oil. You don't want to get too much oil going on because you will see that separation. You don't want to throw your things around. You don't want to get that separation. Give this a good stir in there. Okay, that's mixed in there well. So this needs to cool down to below 100 before I put in my turmeric and my preservative. You can add a fragrance in here. Once again, you're going to want it to cool down so that fragrance doesn't burn off, and I would stick with a 1%. And if I was using an essential oil, 0.5% or a 1%, I wouldn't go too crazy. This is a facial soap. And in these soaps, you don't need a lot of fragrance oil. It goes a long way because it's already gone through that whole saponification process, and you're not going to lose the fragrance oil in that process. Okay, so you can see how it's actually getting a little bit clearer. That's what the glycerin does. It kind of works as a solvent. All right, so we are going to allow this to cool down to below 100, and then we'll add in the rest. So as soon as it's cooled down, I'll bring you back. Okay, so this is cooled down below 100. It's actually at room temperature now. Okay, and you can see that it's kind of got that nice clear look to it. As I stir it, you get more bubbles in it. Okay, so now we're able to add our preservative and our turmeric. Now the turmeric I'm using is a liquid extract, and it's actually extracted into propofol, which is a natural product, and it's commonly used in a lot of ingredients, but it is natural, so it's perfect. And this is extremely potent stuff. Okay, so with this being extremely potent, we don't need to use a lot. All right, and if you use like turmeric powder or something like that, you're going to get those granulars all through your soap, so you don't want that. So this is the best idea. You can get the liquid turmeric extract so many places now. I imagine most soap companies, or all the soap companies I order from, carry this. Okay, but we are going to put in 4 grams. That's all we're going to need of that, and it's in a beautiful color once we get it in here. Okay, so now we've got that beautiful turmeric color going on. And it's that nice translucent color. And then here is our preservative. Now remember, this is a higher pH. I am using Dermal Plus because it will work at this pH. You can't use Optifin, works about a 6% pH, so that is not an option for this. So make sure that you're using a preservative that actually works. This is a lot of water. It will build bacteria fast, so you need to make sure you preserve this with the proper preservative. Make sure you are using one that is a good at that higher percentage, higher end of pH. Okay, so Dermal Plus is that preservative that I will be using, and for the Dermal Plus I am using 5 grams. And then make sure that is stirred in there well. And as I said, you could use a fragrance in this. I'm not going to put a fragrance in this just because it is for a face wash. And as this cools, you can see that it kind of starts to thicken up a little bit. If you wanted it thicker, you could do your dilution rate at a different one, but for the face, I find this works really well. And that's it, guys. That's as simple as it is. Now you can see how thin this is, okay? And the reason that I've thinned it this thin and I'm not thickening it is because I'm putting in a foaming pump, so I don't want the viscosity to be thick. So we're just going to use it like this. And we have our little foaming pump here. I'm just going to grab a little container so that I can pour it in there. Alright, so we're just going to use this little glass container. I'm going to pour some in here just for my pouring vessel. And when you mix the hemp soap with the turmeric, you've seen how it was a little bit cloudy when we cooked it down, but once you put that turmeric oil in there, it's a pretty clear color, right? So definitely the soap paste is cooked down enough. That's your telltale sign it's not cloudy and milky. But we're just going to pour it into here. Leave room for your pump, guys. Mistake I make all the time. So I only fill it to that first little ridge. And then we'll get our pump, because inside here there's quite a big piece, so it will overflow if we get it too full. And when all is said and done, this is what you're left with. A beautiful turmeric colored soap. We've put glycerin in there, and the turmeric had that propendol in there, so it's going to leave a nice humectant feel on the skin. It's going to be very moisturizing. And with the pump, this works really good. Like it's pretty thin liquid, but with the pump, you guys, it creates foam. Okay. If you are going to use this without a foam pump, you would have to thicken this. You could dilute it, you know, 4-to-1 or 3-to-1, but it's going to be to get that way more sudsy action. But this is because of the pumping action. You can see there's still lots of lather, and everything on that soap. All right, you guys, so that's how you will use your soap paste. There's many different ways to use soap paste, but this is how I make my turmeric face wash. Okay, so hopefully you guys enjoyed. Any questions, ask them below, and have a great day.